I've got a nephew who's autistic as well, but I don't know like how many people are affected by autism in terms of.
I think the latest seems to change a little bit. When my son was diagnosed 30 years ago, it was 1 in 10,000, and
Okay.
the most recent one I saw is 1 in 64.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I think that they know a lot more about autism, and people maybe that peripherally wouldn't have been diagnosed. It was more sort of classic autism.
Right. Okay.
Are now getting that diagnosis, and I think there's just a higher incidence.
So you folks are strictly adults over 18. So
yeah. So when my son aged out of high school at age 21, 10 years ago,
okay,
we were looking at a future of a very isolated existence. I was going to be at home. I had to stop working to be at home and be his primary caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And he's nonverbal. And so, he'd love to go to the swings. So we would walk over to the swings every day, and he'd be on the swings, and I'd be sitting on the park bench watching him on the swings. And after about 3 days, I realized that the next 70 years needed a better plan. And that we would need to, figure out how to connect with people, because I was really concerned about my own social isolation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He's a big guy, makes, lots of kind of happy noises, but, if you're at the park with little ones, you're not quite sure what to make of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, geez, there must be some other parents sitting on a park bench somewhere. Wouldn't it be great if we could just get together and, all chat? I got together with some families that, we'd known over the years, and we did research. We sent out sort of a survey to, maybe 40 families, and said, like, what do we need? What do we need to get through the next bit? And also, why aren't we just taking advantage of like the local resources? And, why don't we just go to the gym? And it was about fear of embarrassment, risk of failure. So by the time our kids are 21, we've failed in social situations for 21 years. And it's very difficult to watch the community react negatively to someone that you love with all your heart, and those side glances and
Mm-hmm.
mean comments. Not that everybody's like that, but
Mm-hmm.
there can be like 100 people that treat you lovely, and one person says something horrible, and that's what stays in your heart, right?
Yeah.
In your soul. So so it was risk of embarrassment or failure. It was the type of offerings that were available. So I could take a yoga class for my, mental or social wellness. But my son would be at home with a respite worker. So first of all, it's costing me twice the amount of money. And it's not really that relaxing for me, because the whole time I'm thinking, like, how are they doing? Do I need to get home? Oh, geez, this class is late. The instructor's not starting yet. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
It's not enriching. I couldn't bring him.
Mm-hmm.
I could take him to a thing and then go and sit outside on the bench for an hour once a week for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much he was getting out of it. The stuff that I could find, either that we could do together or for him, I thought was really juvenile. Like it was an art class, but it was like gluing cotton balls onto a Dixie cup or something. Like,
right.
I don't want to do that for 70 years, and I want more for him. So we wanted more sort of high quality, enriching programs. And then there was like some cost considerations. And again, because we're doing this for life, right? A lot of us aren't working because we're caregivers. Our kids are on like ODSP, financial support. So there's not like a lot of money. We can't, we can't sort of purchase things forever.
Yeah.
And so we were looking for solutions. And then part of the survey was like, well, what do we need to be successful? And it was about small groups, because, you know, having 30 of my son in a room isn't good for him, right? He doesn't enjoy that. So it needed to be small groups. They needed to be very flexible, so that if we're having a good day, we can stay for a while. If we're not having a good day, we can leave, and there's no questions asked. It's just, you know, being judged. We wanted a supportive community around us, so we can walk into a place and his idiosyncrasies are celebrated. And, oh, look at him, you know, jumping and clapping today. He's in such a great mood, as opposed to, you know, the negative of that.
Yeah.
And so, so we recruited, based on those research results, we kind of came up with our service model, and we recruited local community leaders to be a board of directors. We incorporated a charity, and we started fundraising. We got a $2,500 grant from the municipality of Clarington, and I think OPG sponsored us for $500 or something like that. And that was our first year's budget.
So how many years ago is this now, Judy?
10 years.
10 years, okay.
10 years, yeah.
Wow.
So, so we rented the local rec center pool and gym, and we met up once a week and did sort of a multi-sport in the gym and then the pool. And then as more families sort of came and heard about it, then somebody said, geez, you know, we should try an art program. So we raised a bit more money, you know, found another local sponsor, wrote another grant. The families all chipped in $100, and we all sort of took turns, you know, with whatever skills we had, right? So somebody can lead a program, somebody else is going to write a grant, somebody else, whatever our skills were. And we just built this charity. Well, I guess actually the other sort of milestone was in our 2019 strategic planning process. We recognized that some of our members with highest needs it still wasn't really working for them. Like, because we were in community venues, we were in like rec centers, libraries, and, you know, those places we couldn't offer we couldn't promise a consistent experience, because it changes depending on what else is happening at the rec center that day, or the staff changes or whatever. And so, you know, if a family shows up, something goes wrong, they have a bad experience, we will never see them again. Like, you know, they have to summon so much courage to come out after failing for 21 years. All they need is like one side glance, and we'll never see them again.
Wow.
So we wanted to find a safe space for that segment of our membership. And then we also felt like for all the members, when you're using recreational spaces, there's no sort of organic chit-chatting time, right? So, you know, you come, you're in the library room, you're in at 6:30, you got to be out at 7:30, and then we're gone, right? So to sort of build those supportive relationships where you can just have a conversation or grab a coffee, or I don't know, not even talk about autism, just talk about, I don't know, regular whatever. The weather or something. So we wanted to build a hub, like a drop-in space that people could use organically. And so you and I maybe couldn't go to Starbucks for a coffee, because that wouldn't be comfortable for my son, but we could meet at the hub. In January 2020, we opened the doors.
Wow. Just before COVID.
6 weeks before COVID, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was March 13th, right, that we had to shut everything down for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we had the center open, because we were able to continue to offer programming virtually. And, you know, as things were opening up, we could have small groups meet. Also, there's a portion of our membership that like wouldn't wear a mask or didn't understand social distancing or hand washing, all of those protocols. So we could offer a safe space, because otherwise, like, those families could not leave the house.
No kidding.
Anyhow, so we've been there ever since.
Right.
And we're 10 years in now. Last year we had about, And we've had some families that sort of come and go, and some families that have been with us right from the beginning. We see some participants, 4 times a week, and we see other people like 4 times a year.
Right.
But there's a feeling of belonging.
Right.
And so that's it. We have, I think we currently have about 100 families.
100 families?
And we serve like the parents or the siblings as well as the autistic adult. So last year we served about 250 participants. We just did our next strategic planning session. And we really, we're focused on succession planning because the original founding members are aging. Mm-hmm. When I started it, my son was 21. He's 31 this year.
Right.
And I am 10 years older too. And so, hoping that those next generation of families come in, or, if we could get some core annualized government funding. Right. So that we could hire professional staff to, take the reins and keep it going. And, yeah. We also recognize that we can't serve an infinite number of people, right? It's really based on the volunteer efforts of families mostly, even though we do have 4 part-time staff. But what we do think we can do is provide advice to families in other communities that want to do something similar. Yeah, I was going to say, so was this model, existing at all before you guys? No, nothing like this at all, eh? Wow. No. You guys are like breaking. Yeah, well, what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? Yeah. Trent University's done some research on like the impact of our programs, and the reports, pardon me, are on our website. But really positive. People are feeling connected. Better mental health, better physical health, and so so we're just out. We're always trying to connect with more families. Continue to offer really high value programs within our means. Mm-hmm. And we'd love to see where it's going to be 10 years from now. Wow. So when somebody like the Towies come to us and go, hey, how can we help you? It's just such an immense relief. No kidding. Wow. Mm-hmm. We have corporate sponsors and we write project grants. The problem without having any core funding is that you can't plan ahead, right? It's all reactive. Like, if we write a grant for this, we get this grant, and most of the grants are time sensitive. Yeah. So you got to scramble to then deliver the project that you conceived of and wanted the funding for, or you might not get that funding. So now you can't do that project. So we really, to really make an impact, we need to be able to forecast ahead of time. Where do we want to be in 3 years? We know that we've got, our rent paid, our insurance paid, our bookkeepers paid, like that kind of stuff, right? I think that autism, the latest one I read was 85% of autistic people who have been able to complete post-secondary, certainly not someone like my son who has very high needs, are still unemployed or underemployed. So they're working part-time minimum wage jobs, because of the social stigma, social challenges, I guess I would say. Society expecting a certain type of behavior or a certain set of social skills, and not understanding that people have other social skills that are completely normal to them. We've got a long way to go with that from that perspective, no doubt. That's the folks that have made it through post-secondary. Right. And I don't know what the numbers are, but I would suspect the majority of autistic adults have not been through post-secondary. Yeah, I'm sure. And so they're also not working. Yeah. And they're at home with their lifelong aging family caregivers. And we are just struggling to help them have a good quality of life and stay at home as long as they can, right?
Right.
My son will need 24-hour care at some point when I can't do it anymore or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of trying to put off the inevitable until I'm a little old lady, which is not that.
Yeah.
It's quick. I can see it from where I'm standing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to wrap up, what do you see in terms of like, what would you like to see in terms of your model, your help for people like your sons and people in other situations? I mean, where are we going with this as a society? What do you see kind of like, what would you like to see happen?
There was two really exciting things that happened, I thought, recently, and one was the polar plunge. Because I can tell you, 25 years ago, for 10 years, I felt like I spent my life apologizing. And, hoping that people will be kind to my son, hoping they'll be sort of forgiving or generous, or, like to the teachers, could he please stay in school? And we have this new generation of families coming up saying, my child has value and they deserve an education, and your job, educators, is to provide that. So good for them. They're my heroes. We didn't know that back then, right? Like 1 in 10,000 is a lonely number. Yeah. Right? But I think there's strength in numbers. So when we saw like 200 local people coming out to the polar swim, and hundreds more sponsoring them, like it just makes you feel like you belong. Right. Like not hated, not a burden.
Yes.
And that's an amazing thing. I remember my son had a service dog when he was about maybe 7 years old or something like that, or maybe 10. I can't remember now. Quinn's been gone a long time. And I remember the first time, like, going for a walk with him, Eric would wear like a belt and have a leash that was kind of attached to the dog. And so Eric would be walking the dog, but I could give the dog commands.
Right.
So we're coming up to an intersection. I give the dog a stay command. The dog lays on the ground. Eric's not going anywhere. And then it was funny because it sort of worked into, I would give the stay command and Eric would sit on the ground. But regardless, he was safe. But the thing that I noticed was, when you have a service dog, people are all of a sudden trying to like look you in the eye and smile in a friendly way. Yes. And I had gotten so used to walking down the street averting my eyes because I didn't want to see all those judgy looks, right? Right. It was just debilitating. And that's why you stop leaving the house. So all of a sudden, people were like smiling and trying to make eye contact. And it took me a minute to go like, like, am I wearing my hat backwards? Like, what's happening? So that happened. And then another thing that I felt very inspired about, on World Autism Day in April 2nd, 2022, we had a car rally. And again, the community came out. And but it was a very diverse, inclusive audience that was there. Like, people were old, young, all abilities, all language. Like, it was just and they were all there for autism and World Autism Day. And it just made me feel happy about the future, right? Like, I'll be gone. I want to think that my son will be in this like amazing world that we're creating. So that's my little Pollyanna. No,
I mean, I think for you to recognize those events in the last 2 years, I think that's great in terms of like showing some progress. And I totally, agree with you in terms of like seeing some of these changes, and hope, that the younger generation is, carrying that or embracing that a lot more, I think, than the older generation, because from autism to, different sexes and all that, it seems to be an issue that's not an issue for younger people. My own kids as well, same idea.
Yeah, and, for sure.
I think that that's very positive. So I think that the inclusion is something that they don't even think about. It's just
Yeah, that's the expectation. Like,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
not being inclusive would be.
That's right. That's right.
But a very tragic story in November. There was a adult male with autism who slipped out of his parents' home in Etobicoke, and he was playing in the leaves on a neighbor's lawn or something. I guess the neighbors didn't know him well, probably because he doesn't go out well. And anyhow, the police ended up there, and they tasered this young man like over and over and over again and assaulted him. And he was in the hospital all like bruised, and his family's just devastated. And I guess you don't you see some shirtless adult man playing in the leaves. Like, is he dangerous? Is
right.
he? And that family's like, they're ruined. Their life is ruined. He will never get over that. He will never play in the leaves carefree again. He will never see a police officer in a uniform and not be fearful again. His parents are terrified for his future.
Wow.
So as far as we've come, it's like we've got a long way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Well, thank you for this. And
we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Judy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.